It's my very great privilege to welcome Dan McDow with us today. Dan is a family man, a businessman, an entrepreneur, a former West Melbourne City Council member, and a current political candidate who has been committed to giving back to this community since moving here in 2010. And today we'll be speaking about the Brevard Prosperity Initiative. Of course, I'll give the caveat, we do not endorse candidates, but we always welcome friends, and we always have who show up at many of the same wonderful causes and have shared UU values. So I thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Dan McDow.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, so I wear several hats, and in one of the hats that I wear is I was involved when I was the city councilman with the looking at our sustainability initiatives. But prior to that, I had been involved with a person by the name of Susan Connolly, and some of you may know that name. And so, next slide, please. The Susan had worked with me a little bit on the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. She was only a member for less than a year, I believe, but that's where I was introduced with Susan, and she and I shared feelings about what can we do to help our community beyond the just the environmental aspect of it. Because I had shown interest. I was just beginning studies, my graduate studies on sustainability. And I just want to introduce to you that in 2018, we started looking at what is sustainability, because a lot of people associate environment. You know, they immediately gravitate towards environment. And it's much more. It's about balancing the economy and then what we know as the triple bottom line in the studies of sustainability, and that was introduced by an economist back in 1994 for the triple bottom line of looking at all three of those elements coming together. That coalescing with the United Nations off to the right-hand side, or left-hand side, depending on which way you look at this, is the Sustainability Development Goals, which there were 17 of them introduced, and there's some lofty goals, aggressive goals. So there was a real push for a lot of that. I know right now is not in that kind of setting, but that was a big push in 2018, and it will regain its footing here soon. I am confident of that. And but Susan and I were looking at various things to introduce, and there were different organizations. Children's Home Society was doing things, South Brevard was doing things, Club Esteem, and so forth, as you can see that list. Next slide, please. And so when we, these are the 17 goals if you haven't seen them. And the United Nations has a ton of indicators and measurements for each one of these goals. Some of them, just show of hands, is everyone pretty familiar with these? Just kind of an idea of these are available online. You can take a look at them. They're the SDG, Sustainability Development Goals for the United Nations. And the world had been pretty much on that path as far as looking at ways to address these 17 initiatives. Next slide, please. What we did here locally was say, okay, what are we doing, though, to look at those triple bottom line, look at the environment, the economy, and social responsibility. And Susan, and those of you that may not know, Susan passed away in a tragic car accident last year. It was quite devastating to those that knew her and her family. And but in that process in 2020, she was looking at what was out there in the Florida Chamber of Commerce. I mean, of all places, right? The Florida Chamber of Commerce was driving the initiative, saying that basically they were looking at how can we improve our economic situation here in Florida. There were some drives from a business perspective to push for, the 10th largest economy in the world and things of that sort. But they were also addressing the fact that there was more to this than just selling more goods, selling more stuff, and buying more stuff, and then making sure you throw it in the right bin, that kind of thing. They knew there was something more holistic about this that needed to be addressed. So, next slide, please. The Brevard Prosperity Initiative was born, and that was in its early states in 2020. There were 10 root causes, which we follow today, and you can see all these. And I will tell you that this is available online through the Florida Chamber, but if you want copies of these slides, this is, available anytime. I don't think they have any trademark infringements or anything of that sort, but there are 10 root causes that the Florida Chamber of Commerce said, what can we do to address some of these issues that we have with our environment to boost people up so we can have us all at the table? And there are 10 root causes, and I'm going to spare you from going through all the details on these 10 root causes, but trust me, each one of them have their own set of challenges that need to be addressed. Next slide, please. The following slides really are going to address, and I'm going to go through them. I'm just going to give you a quick view of them, and that there's 56 indicators that the Florida Chamber, the good news is that, they're a chamber of commerce, so there are numbers and they're wanting to know, and how do we get at this information? The bad news is they're numbers. There are lots of numbers and lots of data. And I'm okay with that because I'm kind of a data guy too. So I'm perfectly okay with that. But in our county, they measure by zip codes, okay? So in this Brevard Prosperity Initiative is one of several initiatives going on across the state of Florida, okay? So there's, I forget exactly how many zip codes in Florida, I think 500, something like that, maybe less. But here in Brevard, there's officially 26, but I count 27 because down in the southern tip of Brevard, it overlaps a lot into Sebastian. The kids go to schools down there, so I count 27 zip codes. And that's how we measure stuff. Because if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. Yeah, sure, we can feel good about it. We get lots of anecdotal stories about things. I was, before I had left for my trip to Chicago, I was doing food distribution. And those are beautiful things to do. But if I don't want to insult anybody who works on these projects, but they're immediate. They're quick fixes. They're not systemic change that needs to occur if you're going to help an economy. And I'm going to give you an idea why it's important when I dive into some. I'll give you a couple of examples why some of them are. If we can quantify for you and show improvement, it will help prosperity for all. So let me go to the next slide. The opportunity matrix, again, this is where it's coming from, Department of Corrections, education, various, census bureaus, lots of credible organizations that the data gets collected. And next slide, please. This is a screenshot from Florida Chamber of Commerce, which you can go to the Florida Chamber of Commerce under the Foundation tab, drill down and get the same information. Basically, it's a lot of, these are part of those 56. You can go to the next slide. I think it's just going to repeat more of the same. And then next slide. There you go. So, and these are actually a snapshot of the, this is Brevard. Do you recognize it? 72 miles long. You see it there. And those little lines that are showing up on Brevard, those are zip codes. Okay? If I would have adequate time, I'd make it a little fancier and put your little zip code numbers on there and all that. But I ran out of time, so this is what you get this morning. Sorry. All right? So bear with me here. Anyway, the next slide, please. So we measure by zip code and we measure with all that data. And then there's this dashboard. This is a dashboard of Florida. And the reason I show this is not to go through the details of looking at the information, because I'm I like to be a big picture guy. So what I like to do is I like to shock people. Okay. See that? Those green things typically is like the red, like a red light, stoplight. You know, green means, hey, things are going well, keep it up, keep going. And then yellow is typically, we should probably be looking at this danger. And then red is, it's not going the way you thought it was working. So this is the state of Florida, right? Looks pretty good to me, right? So this is what gets touted at the State House in Tallahassee, which I was there. Next slide. This is Brevard. Okay, that's the shock I want to give you. Things are not going the way we want them to go. I am not, what an appropriate place to be. I am not preaching to the choir. Most of the people are well aware of things are not going well from an economic perspective. Well, this is one dashboard of many, Larry. So right. It reads employment change, children in poverty, third grade reading scores, open jobs. Okay, you're welcome. And so I just want to kind of tell you that you can get this and much more information by going out to the website and looking for yourself. What I'm hoping to gain today, we all come here with, why am I here? What do I hope to gain out of this? Dan up here talking about Prosperity Initiative. What I'm hoping to do is gain awareness, heighten the awareness that people are aware. You're not alone in the economy here in knowing that things are not going well. We are trying to get as many people to raise those eyebrows as possible. Next slide, please. Now, I do have the zip codes. Ta-da! Okay, so when I published this slide 2 years ago, those blue arrows those are zip codes. Those blue arrows were green. Okay, and green means that let me start over. Green means living paycheck to paycheck, you're above that. Life is good. So on average, I'm not saying that within those green zip codes there aren't people that are hurting. There are. But in aggregate, we look at data and we say, okay, these green, they're doing well. They're above the paycheck to paycheck threshold. Yellows mean they're tinkering right at it or on it or right below it, okay? And red means trouble, that they're tinkering on poverty, okay? They're living not just paycheck to paycheck, they're living below that. And I think I may have said this before. If you've heard people say, oh, you know what, I was poor and I didn't, but we didn't know we were poor. I'm telling you, when you're poor, because I'm a poor kid from Chicago, and I know this, when you're poor, you know you're poor, okay? And people also know that how to survive when you're poor. And that is one of the things that's happened in the past. The people that get hit the hardest are the people that are not familiar with being, struggling paycheck to paycheck. And we're seeing this map of Brevard, okay, reach from 2 years ago, which was tinkering on half of the county being paycheck to paycheck, to now over half the county living paycheck to paycheck. 51% of our county lives paycheck to paycheck, okay? And four of our counties actually have quite a bit of folks that are living in poverty. Now, if it's possible to go back real quick, I want to show you one thing on that red slide. One slide over. Okay, I will go to the Brevard. Yeah, where it's children in poverty. I want to express this because you need to hear this. We have more children. Let me preface it. We have no real population growth when it comes to births. We have the same amount of kids we did 11 years ago. Same amount of kids. okay? The county's grown, mostly in 65 and older, but it has grown, but not children. We have the same amount of children. We have more kids in poverty this year than last year. Okay, that's worth repeating. We have more children in poverty this year than we did last year in Brevard. Okay, thank you for letting me share that. We've also, while we have this up, I'll tell you one of the indicators that is near and dear to me, because I got involved with Susan when we were part of the Children's Home Society, which partnered with Endeavor Elementary School in Cocoa. And that is basically, it monitors third grade reading level. I learned this just the other day, and I've been working with the Prosperity Initiative for several years, and I did not know this, that the prison system actually uses third grade reading levels to project out how many cells they're going to need, prison cells, down the road, okay? Because they have figured out third grade reading level. If you're not meeting that, there is a high possibility that you are not, probability that you are not going to graduate, okay, high school. And if you don't graduate high school, there's a 7 times greater chance that you're going to be incarcerated. That is amazing that they can actually look at that and prove that that is actually by third grade reading level. So they monitor third grade reading level. Anyway, go ahead and go forward. Go one more. So these are the third grade, and again, I'm going to emphasize all this information. If you're really sitting there going, oh, I want to check on what Dan was saying, go out there and look. Go look at your schools. See how they're doing. This is a snapshot, and I think there's like a second one here too of another school on the next slide. It's in alphabetical order, I believe. There we go. If you look at this data, let's just look at the top one at John F. Turner. That's the very first one. And it says that there's 55 kids in that school, and 39% of them are reading, are at or above the reading level, third grade reading level. 39%. Okay? Our schools are failing in this area. They're not gaining. So you can hear what you want to hear out there. We have troubles right here in River City, and we need to address that. Next slide, please. One more. I am not going to bore you with a lot of this demographic data. I'm just going to let you know that folks monitor and are reviewing data in a variety of ways. This information is actually captured locally by a gentleman named Tony, who's on the team, and I do give him credit at the end of these slides, but it was basically to kind of understand Palm Bay in general. Those are Palm Bay zip codes up there, but I wanted to give you a snapshot so you can kind of see how, you know, when you look at numbers, you look at numbers. Unless you really look at them and then compare them to other areas, it's kind of, it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. I just want to share that this information is out there with all different kinds of data, whether it's population, how much people are working, median household incomes, labor force, etc. Next slide, please. And just more, I believe there's 3 slides like this. So there's just a lot of data out there. And then a third slide. There you go. And this will not, these slides are not out on the Florida Chamber of Commerce, but if you have a burning desire to see those zip codes in Palm Bay, I mean, obviously it's going to be available, I believe, on the YouTube. So move forward. Next slide. So I want to say, though, that in that when we started the Prosperity Initiative, it isn't like we don't need another nonprofit organization, guys. We have 2,500 of them already, okay? And that is typical when you have a conservative town that doesn't like their government to take care of their people. So what happens? Nonprofits come up to try to take care, because you're not, I mean, because it's real. When you have, 600,000+ people in Brevard, not all of them are, able to be out on that beautiful lagoon in their boats, okay? There's folks that are really struggling out there. There are groups north, central, south, and here in Palm Bay just starting up that actually are doing what we call asset mapping. And that is basically looking at resources and saying, we do not need, and you're not going to hear this too often from a politician, we don't need government to tell us what to do. We can go ahead, and as an elected official, I can tell you that sometimes we get in our own way. And if we let people and just be able to just sit down at the table and say, you do that, I'm working on a food project and blah, 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 and before you know it, the synergy starts and off we go. And we create solutions, which is really critical because that's what we're trying to do is change the economic landscape for Brevard. Next slide, please. So I want to thank give acknowledgement to the Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce because I will tell you that that is something that they don't have to do, and they take it upon themselves to add their administrative support to the organization because it's just a group of volunteers. Susan passed the torch on to Shannon Procyse, who operates a small business, national leader, and she created a lot of the networking and the synergy with the various teams over the last few years to get them at the table because a lot of people want to do what's the saying, with them, what's in it for me? They're not just coming to the table, they're trying to figure out, well, what am I getting out of this deal? Well, what you want to get out of this deal is the right thing to do, is to help people and help them get moving on. I do want to also mention that because I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that people that are living above and not in the paycheck to paycheck, we should be happy for them. We should be proud of them. We should acknowledge the fact that they are doing okay. That's what we all want, right? That's what we want. So let's not be too quick to judge. You know, some have more. I'm guilty of that one. You know, there's some that are way beyond what I think is reasonable in prosperity. But I don't want to be too quick to judge those that are doing okay. That's where we all want to be eventually, is not having to live, especially in that red zone. So again, I acknowledge Tony's leadership and Shannon's leadership, the Palm Bay Chamber, and we do have, it's open to the public. We are at the Wings of Grace. We have monthly meetings. Have more interest in this, you can contact me or go on Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce and drop down, get the information, sign up. It isn't a cost, especially if you're from business or you're involved in a nonprofit. We'd love to hear from you. I think it's important. So with that said, I am pretty much wrapped up. Are we all right with that? If there's any questions, I'll feed that. Hopefully you got a little bit of aha moments out of that. Thank you.